Today, I want to talk to you about something truly transformative. You see, many of us have dreams, desires, and goals we want to manifest in our lives, but often there are traps that hold us back from realizing these dreams. So, I'm going to share with you 5 of these traps and how to overcome them so you can manifest anything you desire. Let's start with the first trap. One of the biggest traps we fall into is living in the past. Our minds are wired to replay past experiences, and this keeps us stuck in old patterns. But here's the thing, the past doesn't equal the future. If you want to manifest something new in your life, you have to let go of the past. How do you do that? Start by becoming aware of your thoughts. Notice when you're dwelling on past events or rehashing old memories. Then, consciously choose to shift your focus to the present moment. This is where your power lies. Now let's take a closer look at the second trap, operating on autopilot. It's like we're robots programmed to do the same things over and over again without even thinking about it. Our brains are wired to seek out familiar patterns and routines, even if they're not helping us grow or achieve our goals. But if we want to manifest something new in our lives, we have to break free from these autopilot behaviors. Think about it like this. Imagine you're driving a car on autopilot. You're not paying attention to where you're going. You're just following the same old route you always take. But what if you want to explore a new destination? You can't get there by following the same old route. You have to take control of the wheel and steer yourself in a new direction. The same is true in life. If we want to manifest something new, whether it's a new job, a new relationship, or a new hobby, we have to break free from our autopilot behaviors. We have to shake things up and try new things. So how do we break free from autopilot? It starts with awareness. We have to become aware of the habits and routines that are holding us back. Maybe it's spending too much time on social media or watching too much TV or procrastinating instead of taking action towards our goals. How do you do that? Start by becoming more mindful of your daily habits. Notice when you're going through the motions without really thinking about what you're doing. Then consciously choose to break free from these patterns and try something new. This is where true growth and transformation happen. Now let's dig deeper into the third trap, fear. It's like a big, scary monster that keeps many of us from going after what we want. We're scared of failing, getting rejected, or feeling like we're not good enough. But guess what? Fear is just a trick our minds play on us. It's not real, and it only has power over us if we believe in it. Think of fear like a shadow. It's there, lurking in the background, but it's not actually tangible. It's just a product of our thoughts and imagination. And just like a shadow, fear only exists because we give it power. If we shine a light on it, we can see that it's nothing more than an illusion. The truth is, fear is a natural part of being human. It's our body's way of keeping us safe from potential dangers. But in today's world, our fears are often irrational and unfounded. We're not running from lions or tigers anymore. We're running from things like failure and rejection. But here's the thing, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. When we let fear dictate our actions, we miss out on so many opportunities for growth and success. We stay stuck in our comfort zones, too afraid to take risks or pursue our passions. How do you overcome fear? Start by facing it head-on. Acknowledge your fears, but don't let them dictate your actions. Instead, focus on what you want to manifest and take small steps towards it, even if it scares you. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. Now let's take a deeper look at the fourth trap, limiting beliefs. These are the thoughts we have about ourselves that hold us back. We might tell ourselves that we're not smart enough, not talented enough, or not worthy enough to achieve our dreams. But guess what? Those beliefs aren't set in stone. In fact, they can be changed. Here's the thing, what you believe about yourself shapes your reality. If you believe that you're not good enough, your actions will reflect that belief. You'll hold yourself back from taking risks or pursuing your passions because you don't think you deserve success. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Your beliefs are like the lenses through which you see the world. If you believe that you're capable of achieving great things, you'll be more likely to take action and make your dreams a reality. But if you believe that you're not worthy of success, you'll sabotage yourself at every turn. The good news is that you have the power to change your beliefs. It's not always easy, but it's definitely possible. Start by becoming aware of the limiting beliefs that are holding you back. Notice the negative thoughts that pop into your head and challenge them. Ask yourself if they're really true or if they're just stories you've been telling yourself. Let's take a closer look at the fifth trap that holds many of us back: waiting for external validation. It's like we're stuck in a waiting room, waiting for someone to give us the green light before we can start living our dreams. We think we need approval from others or certain things to happen before we can take action. But here's the real deal. You have the power to create your own reality. You see, we often look outside of ourselves for validation. We want others to tell us that we're good enough, smart enough, or talented enough to pursue our dreams. We think that if we don't get that stamp of approval, we're not worthy of success. But that's just not true. The truth is, you hold the key to your own success. You have the power to make your dreams a reality, regardless of what anyone else thinks or says. You don't need permission from anyone else to go after what you want in life. You are the captain of your own ship, the master of your own destiny. Waiting for external validation is like waiting for the stars to align perfectly before you take action. It's like putting your life on hold until someone else gives you the go-ahead. But here's the thing: the stars may never align in the way you want them to. And if you're constantly waiting for external validation, you'll be waiting forever. Instead of waiting for someone else to validate your dreams, why not validate them yourself? Believe in yourself and your abilities. Trust that you have what it takes to make your dreams a reality. Don't let the opinions of others hold you back from pursuing your passions. When you stop waiting for external validation and start believing in yourself, amazing things can happen. You'll start to see opportunities where you once saw obstacles. You'll take inspired action towards your goals, knowing that you have what it takes to succeed. How do you stop waiting for external validation? Start by trusting yourself and your inner guidance. Know that you have everything you need within you to manifest your desires. Then take inspired action towards your goals, regardless of what others may think or say. Remember, so people wake up in the morning and they start thinking about their problems. And those problems are memories in the brain that are connected to certain people and certain things at certain times and places. So they wake up in the morning and they start thinking in the past. Now, the moment they start having those thoughts, every one of those experiences has an emotion associated with it. So when they start thinking about their problems or the problems of the world or the problems of their body or whatever it is, problems at work, they all of a sudden start to feel the correlated emotion. So now their body's in the past. So now people then get caught up in an emotion. They reaffirm their identity. They could wake up in the morning and feel nothing at all. And then all of a sudden they say, well, wait a second, I've got to get back to myself. So they start thinking about their problems, and here come the emotions, and they say, oh, now I feel like me again. So those emotions then begin to influence our thoughts. Like if you feel like a failure, you're going to think you're a failure. And when you think you're a failure, you're going to feel like a failure. And when you feel like a failure, you're going to think more thoughts equal to being a failure. And the cycle of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking causes you to say, I am a failure. And the repetition of that process of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking conditions the body to become the mind of that emotion. Now the emotion is stored in the body. Now the body's literally in the past. And the body, as the unconscious mind, doesn't know the difference between the actual experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that you're creating by thought alone. Your body's believing it's in the same experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So then getting people out of the past is the work. So then they wake up in the morning after they reaffirm who they are, and they can't think greater than how they feel. They're in the familiar past. So if you're in the familiar past, you're going to do the things that reaffirm the emotions of your predictable future. So you wake up in the morning, you check your WhatsApp, you check your text, you check your Twitter, you tweet, you check your Facebook, you check your email, you check the news. Now you are really connected to everything that's known in your life, and then you run through a series of routine behaviors. You move around your house the same way you always do. You do all the same things, you go to the same grocery store, you buy the same food, you shop the same way, you watch the same TV shows, and people do this for 10, 20, 30 years. Now their body's on autopilot, and their body's dragging them into a predictable future based on what they did in the past. You could actually take their yesterday and lift it up and set it on their tomorrow, which means then they've lost their free will to a program. So now the familiar past and the predictable future is called the known. There's only one place that you have to train a person to be so that they're not in the known, they're in the unknown. And that's called the present moment. So people get very happy being unhappy because they would rather cling to their unhappiness than take a chance in possibility. So stepping into that river and beginning to make a new choice and understanding that uncertainty, that unpredictability is the unknown. Now you're in that river of change, and it is the neurological, the biological, the chemical, hormonal, genetic death of the old self. People say to me, well, if there's uncertainty, I can't predict my future. And I always say the same thing. The best way to predict your future is to create it, not in the known, right there. That uncertainty, you can learn now how to regulate your state instead of living in fear, because the idea that things are going to get worse, the idea that you can't predict, the idea of being uncertain or can't control something actually sets off the stress response. So now you're in the unknown, and this survival gene is switched on. Of course, people are going out of the infinite possibilities that exist in the quantum field. They're going to select the worst scenario in their mind, right? So then what if you're in the unknown and you understand that, and now you can work back into that present moment, and you say, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain, put my attention behind? What behaviors today, one day, what behaviors do I want to demonstrate? And the act of closing your eyes and mentally rehearsing who you're going to be when you open your eyes begins to install the neurological hardware in your brain to look like you've already done it. Now the brain is no longer a record of the past. Now it's a map to the future. So by rehearsing mentally and doing it over and over again, the hardware becomes a software program, and who knows, you just might start acting like a happy person. Well, there's no magic there. You install the circuitry. You may start thinking in more unlimited ways. You put those circuits in place. Now here's the tough part. Can you teach your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like before it's made manifest? That means you can't wait for your healing to feel gratitude and wholeness. You can't wait for your wealth to feel worthy and abundant. You can't wait for your new lover to feel love. That's the old model of reality of cause and effect, waiting for something outside of us to take away our emptiness and pain that we feel inside of us. That's Newtonian cause and effect. The quantum model of reality is about causing an effect. That means the moment you start feeling worthy and abundant, you're generating wealth. The moment you're in love with yourself and you're in love with life, you create an equal. The moment you start feeling gratitude and wholeness, your healing actually starts to begin. They're actually waiting for their health to improve to feel gratitude. They're waiting for their new relationship to feel joy and gratitude and thankfulness. They're waiting for the new career to happen. Once it happens, then they celebrate and feel gratitude. If you believe that your thoughts and feelings produce an effect in your life, and you're living in the lack every single day, waiting for it to happen, you're separate from the experience. If you think about the emotional signature of gratitude, when you are receiving something that you like, that's pleasurable. You've just gotten or received something that is pleasurable. Something just happened to you, or something's happening to you that you like, you say thank you. You feel gratitude. The emotional signature of gratitude is that something has already happened. It is the absolute perfect state of receiving. It is the absolute state of receivership. Here's an example. A person gets a diagnosis. The diagnosis is something like cancer. The first moment they hear that word, they feel fear. They feel a change in their internal state, and they pay attention to what the doctor says. They take a snapshot and they create that memory. They remember the moment the doctor said that. Now they're in fear, they're scared, they're going to think positively, or they're saying, I'm going to beat this thing. Well, if they're feeling fear, they can only accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to their emotional state. Fear thoughts will be the only ones that will make it in there. Now, if the person changes fear to gratitude, as an example, and they really start training their heart, we can measure when a person feels gratitude, what happens to their heart. Their heart gets regulated, it starts beating more coherently, it starts increasing energy to the brain, it starts creating an ambient field around the body. This is when your heart starts working for you. That when a person starts feeling gratitude, then the emotional signature in the body is that something's happening to them, or something's just happened to them. Now we have available energy to begin to design a destiny with. So then a person who moves into that elegant state of being where they're expanded and they're enriched and they're in love with life, then they can't go back to the old self, because that is their new state of being. So then if you practice that every day, sooner or later, it's going to begin to become familiar to you. So then if you're creating wealth and you're in the state of being of abundant, you better not be thinking lacking thoughts, because an abundant person would never do that. You can't demonstrate that you're not making choices because you believe that there's not enough, lack of time, lack of energy, lack of money. A wealthy person would never think that you can't feel unworthy and lacking if you're going to be a wealthy person. So by very logic and reason, you've got to lay that down and move into this state of being. Now, once you're in that state of being, can't sit on the couch and wait for the phone call. Once you're in that state of being, you've got to start making choices into the unknown from that state of being. You've got to trust in the unknown. The moment you don't make the choice, you just doubted your creation. You return back to the known. And so people then, when you're in that state of being, the miraculous happens when you say, okay, I'm going to go for it, but you're not going to go for it from as your limited emotional self. You're going to go for it as your unlimited self. And you begin to make those choices and you step out into the unknown. That's when the miraculous happens. And you say, oh my God, I'm so glad I made that choice. But then waking up in the morning, then impriming your brain and body to make that change is the key. There's 2 times the door to the subconscious mind opens up. When we wake up in the morning and we go to bed at night. Why? In that crossover place. Because your brain goes from deep delta brain waves to theta brain waves to alpha brain waves to beta brain waves. Why? And when you go to bed at night, it goes from beta to alpha to theta to delta. And if you can't get there, you're stuck in high beta, it's because you're driving the sports car in first gear. So people do whatever they can to get down there. So the brain chemistry works in accordance with this. When you wake up in the morning and the receptors in the back of your eye pick up light, the moment that happens, your optic nerve sends a signal to the pineal gland, and the pineal gland starts making serotonin. And serotonin is the daytime neurotransmitter. In other words, serotonin gets you up and going, it gets your brain turned on. The moment it starts getting dark at night, and your eye is no longer picking up visible light, the mechanism starts to change. And now, because there's less light, the optic nerve sends a signal to the pineal gland. The pineal gland takes serotonin and starts carving off a couple methyl groups and turns it into melatonin. And melatonin is the nighttime neurotransmitter. So Sarah gets you up in the morning and Mel puts you to bed at night. Now, when serotonin increases, your brainwave patterns go into beta. That's because you're going to pay attention more to the outer world. When you're in meditation and you close your eyes and you eliminate light and it's dark in the room and you play music in the background, you put earplugs in, you're getting less sensory data coming in from your environment. So the neocortex is not so preoccupied with trying to create meaning between the outer world and the inner world. You're forgetting about the outer world, and the inner world is where you're cultivating something. And when you close your eyes and do your meditation, then your brain waves move into melatonin. But if you're waking up in the morning and you're waking up at 5 in the morning, guess what? Your brain waves will probably be in theta or alpha. You're in your subconscious. You're past the beta thinking. If you go to bed at night, I have friends that are artists and playwrights and musicians. They stay up till 2 in the morning. They love that 11 o'clock till 2 in the morning. They're in nighttime. They're in alpha. They got all these creative ideas. Me, I'm a morning person. I wake up, I'm up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning. It's my time to create. I set aside a certain amount of time. That's my time because the rest of the day I'm serving. So I like to get myself right in the morning. So doing that then begins to alter brainwave patterns. Now, if you move from beta to alpha, there'll come an amazing moment. If you do this right, you'll slip into theta. Now, theta is when your body is asleep, but your mind is awake. So think about this. If your body's asleep and you've conditioned it to be the mind through addictions or habits, the moment the body's asleep, it's no longer the mind. So there's no longer any resistance, and that's where instantaneous change takes place. If you go too far, you slip into delta, and that's called deep sleep, restorative sleep. And people say to me, well, I really can't meditate. And I say, really, where do you meditate? Oh, in bed. Yeah, well, get out of bed. You're going to go right to delta. So then what we noticed in our research, to finish that other thought, is that there comes a moment when you're in that coherent level of alpha, and all of a sudden you slip into theta. And all of a sudden, when theta turns on, all of a sudden you start seeing this amazing change take place. And the body becomes so relaxed, and the energy centers, the sympathetic nervous system switches on. Most of our thoughts and feelings come from our past experiences. They come from our memories. In fact, your brain is organized to reflect everything you know in your life. Your brain is a record of all the things you've learned and experienced to date. It's an artifact. And when you have an experience, when you're in the midst of an experience, all of your 5 senses plug you into the external environment. And as your brain is processing all of this vital sensory data, all of that information rushes back to the brain. And when it reaches the brain, it causes jungles of neurons to organize themselves into networks, to string into patterns, to reflect their interaction with their external environment. The moment those neurons organize into patterns, the brain makes a chemical, and that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And so experiences tend to create more long-term memories because it patterns or stamps or embosses networks of neurons into very specific patterns. And then the emotional quotient helps us to remember the event. So we learn something new intellectually. We also cause networks of neurons to form. The Nobel Prize laureate Kandel in the year 2000 found that when people learn just one bit of information, they double the number of connections in their brain from 10,300 connections to 2,600 connections. So if they didn't review that information or repeat it, the connections pruned apart. So we know then that learning semantic information begins to organize circuitry in the brain, and experiences enrich the brain. The end product of experience, of course, is the emotion, and it causes us to feel certain ways. You can remember where you were on 9/11. You can tell me who you were with, what time of day it was, what you were doing, because whatever you were seeing in that moment or hearing in that moment changed how you were feeling. And the moment you felt altered or you felt differently, significantly, your brain perked up and you paid attention to whatever caused that. And that event in and of itself is called a memory. So then most of our thoughts and feelings tend to be within the neural circuitry of the past and the emotions of the past chemically. So if you take a thought, thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. And how you think and how you feel creates a state of being. So if you combine a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, and you have a series of good thoughts that are connected to a series of good feelings, that cycle of thinking and feeling creates what's called an attitude. So as you inhale now, you're pulling that energy and contracting these muscles, and you're locking that first center down, and you're squeezing and you're milking this energy out of there. So it goes first center, then you follow your breath into the second center, and as you follow your breath into the second center, now you lock this one down. And the way you lock it down is you pull in your belly button close to your spine, you pull it in. So then inhale, first center, then you pull in the second center, you're still following your breath slowly and steadily, and then you pull it up into your upper abdomen, and you're locking down the center here. Now you're squeezing all three of these lower centers, and when you squeeze these muscles, you begin to push that cerebral spinal fluid up. You follow your breath up into your chest, shoulders down. You follow it through your throat, straighten your spine. You follow it all the way up to the top of your head. Now where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So you want that energy to move right to the top of your head. So then as you inhale, you bring that energy all the way up to the top. You keep following your breath. You lock all the way to the top. When you get to the top, now you hold your breath. And when you hold your breath, you contract those intrinsic muscles, and you begin to lift those muscles up, and you begin to compress those muscles, and you begin to push that cerebral spinal fluid up into your brain. So then why do I ask you to inhale and hold your breath? Now this isn't inhaling and turning purple and pushing. If you're doing that, you're doing it wrong. It's a slow, steady breath, and you follow that breath all the way to the top, either to the top of your head, or you put your awareness on where that pineal gland is, between the back of your throat and the back of your head. Now when you inhale, that inhalation is very slow and very steady. It's not a big inhalation and pushing. It's a slow, steady breath, and you're contracting these muscles and coordinating it, and you're following your breath all the way to the top of your head. And when you get to the top of your head, I'm going to ask you to inhale a little bit more, and as you pull up, you're going to lock these muscles down even further, and you're lifting them up. Once you lift them up and you have your attention either on the top of your head or the space that your pineal gland occupies in space, I'm going to ask you to lock those muscles down and pump, squeeze, or push. And I want you to push that fluid up into your brain by squeezing the muscles. Not by holding your breath harder, but by squeezing those muscles. I want you to begin to pump that fluid and begin to compress up against your pineal gland. When you do this breath, you have to demonstrate a will that's greater than any program. You have to find a level of intensity or a level of passion that's greater than the body as the mind or any addiction to any emotion. You have to inspiration, the movement of energy. Don't be afraid of it. Just surrender into it. For some people, their body will do unusual things. That's information trying to be integrated into it. Don't be afraid of it. Just surrender into it. If your body does weird things, more than likely that's energy moving to your brain. If you have a lapse of consciousness, or you all of a sudden find yourself on the ground, that's energy moving into your brain. It's happened to me numerous times. It's a sign that you're getting close, or at least doing it correctly. Now where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So you want that energy to move right to the top of your head. Inspiration, the movement of energy. You have to find a level of intensity or a level of passion that's greater than the body as the mind or any addiction to any emotion. Don't be afraid of it. Just surrender into it. On a Sunday morning while she was in the shower, her husband said goodbye to his 2 children, yelled something to her while she was in the shower, and then went to the tallest building in Amsterdam and jumped off the building and committed suicide. Now that is a stressful event, and when she got the news, she experienced all the emotions that people experience from something that's shocking and traumatic like that. She was suffering, she was in pain, she was resentful, she was guilty, she was confused, she was angry. She went through the whole gamut of emotions, and all of those emotions, by the way, are derived from the hormones of stress. So she has an event in her life. It changes her biologically. She doesn't know how to control her emotional reaction. it turns into a mood, one long emotional reaction. If you keep reviewing that event in your mind, you begin to produce the same chemistry in your brain and body as if the event was occurring.